What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants' regular season lineup is not set just yet, but we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be starting and which position and who's going to be getting the most playing time this upcoming year. Of course, there's newcomers like Darren Waller. He'll be a staple in the offense. Jalen Hyatt will probably work his way in. Deonte Banks, we expect him to start from day one. And there's plenty of other guys who have already established themselves as the New York Giants starter, like Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor will not be one of the players that we discuss in this episode, despite me really wanting to get some flames going from the fan base, start up some controversy for fun, but we won't dive into that. We're going to talk about three other players who are going to be potentially stealing some playing time this upcoming season. Now, some of these players we think could get into the lineup based on injury history at the position, or maybe just because they're too damn good to be on the bench all the time. So we're going to go ahead and dive into these three players today, but before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and make sure you go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fireside Giants for daily New York Giants content on all your social media channels. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And who is one of the players that stands out to you as a player that could potentially steal some playing time this season?
I'm doing great, and look, we're getting closer to football, but we're still about a month away from some actual, real news, and it kind of stinks that we're so far away from some actual real news, because I'm dying for it, man. I'm dying for some real stuff, see these guys hit each other, see these guys get after it and start these position battles that we're so excited to kind of watch. You know, strong safety is going to be a position battle, the slot cornerback spot. There's a lot of spots that are really up for grabs, and I think the Giants are kind of building out this roster to have some talent there. You know, like strong safety, you got guys like Dane Belton and Bobby McCain, some good talent that with some upside. You know, Bobby McCain's known to be a really good coverage safety, but then you have Dane Belton, who's really good in the run. He can hit hard. He's really good in zone coverage, and, you know, had that broken clavicle last year. But, you know, right now I'm kind of looking at a couple players. I know, Anthony, I'll let you kind of get after the cornerback you have in mind here. This guy that I think coming from the Detroit Lions, really underrated player that you've really been high on recently. So I'll start off with the receiver with Colin Johnson. I think that Colin Johnson makes this roster coming off the Achilles tear, and I think that he actually makes an impact on this season. Colin Johnson was looking really good for the Giants before that injury happened. You know, he was a player that has the size. He's 6'6", one of the tallest receivers in the game, if not the tallest. Ridiculous wingspan. He's very fast for a player of that size, and I think that Daniel Jones can, you know, utilize a player with that type of range, that type of catch radius, but also one that is going to have a lot more space to work with, because you look at all the other weapons we have on this team. Like, Saquon's going to play this year. Even if they don't extend him, he has no choice but to play on the roster, or on the franchise tag, rather. You have guys like Wandale coming back. You got Jalen Hyatt, you know, Shep's coming back, Darius Slayton. There's some good players on this team, and I think that ultimately there's going to be too many mouths to feed for opposing defenses to kind of let them play man coverage, or kind of let these guys run wild without really, you know, playing a more strategic strategy on the back end in the defensive backfield. Because ultimately, like last season, you saw the opposing defenses did. They just stopped the run, made us one-dimensional, and we could not fight back. So with that being said, I think like guys like Colin Johnson, whether it's on the boundary or in the slot, you know, Jalen Hyatt had a lot of slot snaps with Tennessee last year. That's kind of where a lot of his production came from. He's capable of playing on the outside, but the Giants don't have like any big body guys on the outside. Like Darius Slayton's not a big body guy. Like, he can make some contested catches, but he's more of a speedster. Colin Johnson is your big body kind of physical guy, aside from Isaiah Hodgins. I think that he might be like the first alternate behind Isaiah Hodgins. So if anything were to happen to him, or he needs a breather, we could see Colin Johnson out there on the field. And I think that he could actually steal some snaps, you know, just in terms of if he's playing well enough and he's getting if he's hauling in a lot of passes. We saw Daniel Jones rely on him that one game. He just kept going back to him, and he kept catching everything. I think, I'm not sure if it was in the preseason or not, maybe it was 2 years ago, but ultimately I remember that very clearly, and we were all saying, like, this guy could make an impact for us. And I think that Colin Johnson, while he does have a little bit of a roadblock ahead of him, even if he could make a slight impact, get in there, get hot with Daniel Jones and catch a couple passes, make an impact, that's all you're really asking from a guy that's a back-end receiver talent and coming off a significant injury. So Anthony, when looking at Colin Johnson, you know, do you think he can make an impact here? I know a lot of people think he's a fan favorite, and I do think that he's a really decent player to have as a reserve. And I wish to God he was healthy last year, because he could have made a pretty decent impact for us. He probably would have replaced Kenny Golladay full time, if we're being honest.
He definitely would have replaced Kenny Galladay full time, but I will say there's always a silver lining out of every situation. If Colin Johnson didn't go down with injury, who knows if Isaiah Hodgins would be on this team. So now we have Isaiah Hodgins and Colin Johnson, which is even better. So I'm excited for both of those players, but I do believe that Colin Johnson could sneak his way into the lineup because, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of these players that we're going to mention today are just too damn good not to see the field. I was mainly referring to Colin Johnson because this guy was a starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He also was briefly a starter for the New York Giants a couple seasons ago, and he was a good player with both of those teams. This is not somebody who is washed up and the Giants are taking a chance on. This is a player who established himself as being a solid wide receiver in the NFL. No, he's not a WR1. Maybe he's not even a WR2. But of your starting three receivers that line up out there on the Sundays, Colin Johnson is more than capable of going out there, catching some passes, and making an impact for an offense. So Colin Johnson, you mentioned it, he brings that big body presence on the outside, that physicality that's pretty much absent from the New York Giants receiving core. They've got a bunch of shifty route runners. I know Brian Dable wants that. He's been looking for separators. That's what he really desires from his wide receiver position, guys who could separate. And now they have that. Shep is coming back. He's still a separator. Paris Campbell has all the speed in the world. He could separate. Same story for Jalen Hyatt. They've got their separators, but they don't have many of those contested catch guys, those physical guys who stand on the outside and just are a presence, just tower over opposing corners. But Colin Johnson does that. He's the tallest wide receiver in the NFL. His wingspan is freakishly large, so he can bring in all of those difficult catches away from his body. He's just a really, really good player that, again, if he's healthy this upcoming season, he's too damn good not to see the field at some point during the regular season. So I think he's going to steal a little bit of playing time. Who will he steal it from? I'm not exactly sure, but listen, this is the New York Giants, this is the NFL, and this is football. There are always injuries. It is inevitable. So some of these players that we are expecting to have big seasons, they might still have big seasons, but they might have a game or two where they're a little hampered and someone else has to fill in for them. Enter Colin Johnson, and also enter the next guy I want to discuss, Amani Oruwariye, cornerback formerly of the Detroit Lions. I'm extremely high on this guy, Alex. I've been talking about him probably too much on the podcast in recent weeks. He's a little bit of our secret weapon, but I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag with how frequently I keep mentioning him. Throughout his first 3 seasons in Detroit, he made a name for himself and quickly established himself as one of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL. 2 years ago, we were talking about Amani Oruwariye as being a future Pro Bowler, maybe even a future All-Pro player. Now, we're talking about him as a backup who's fighting to make the New York Giants roster. How did that happen? One bad season can change everything, and that's all he had. One really atrociously bad season in 2022 from Amani Oruwariye. But who's to say he can't bounce back? Who's to say that he can't come to a new team, get that change of scenery, get that great New York Giants Wink Martindale coaching, and bounce back? Well, I think that he can, and I think that when you look at the Giants defense, it's a perfect match for Amani Oruwariye's skill set. So, Amani Oruwariye is a 6'2", 220-pound physical outside cornerback. He doesn't play in the slot, so I know that's a starting position that's open, but that's not for Oruwariye. We already have 2 established starters on the outside. I understand that, but again, injuries have been a big part of Adoree Jackson's career. He hasn't played a full season in over 2 years. He hasn't played a full season in over 4 years, I think it is, and he has never played a full season with the New York Giants. So if he continues at this trend, there will be a couple games open for Amani Oruwariye to ascend into the starting lineup. And again, Oruwariye plays well in cover 3 and cover 1. So when you're talking about those aggressive corners that play well in those press man coverage defensive schemes, that's what Wink Martindale is always looking for, and that's what they found in Amani Oruwariye. I think that they were really lucky that he flew under the radar in free agency because, again, he had a bad year, but I'm surprised that no other teams viewed this as a player who could really have a bounce back, who could really turn things around here. He's still only 27 years old. Oruwariye was a damn good corner for the Lions 2 years ago. That's not a long time, guys. Just one bad season has really derailed his career, and it's very unfortunate to watch this unfold. But one good season with the New York Giants playing kind of in rotation, that might be the bounce back that he needs, and hopefully this kid can go out there, compete, make a name for himself once again, and get himself a better contract and a more stable long-term contract with another team next season. That's what I view from Oruwariye. And again, if we do have any injuries in the secondary at the cornerback spot, That's the number one name to keep an eye on. Amani Oruwariye, he will enter the lineup. If he does make this roster, which I really believe that he will, he is a damn good player who could step in, make an impact. And again, he's only 27 years old. His story is not finished. His book is not yet written. Don't write this guy off. Give him a chance. I think that he can turn things around here with the New York Giants.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at a player like this, and the one thing that stands out is he has plenty of experience, right? 2,600 snaps. You look at guys like Nick McLeod, Zion Gilbert, some of the depth pieces we have, they don't even closely resemble that amount of experience. So the fact that he's been a starter, the fact that he's only coming off of like a bad season, you give chances to guys like this, right? He's 27 years old, so, he's definitely a little bit older, but also very young, is in his prime still. As a backup, there is no harm in having this guy compete, like none at all. I mean, you look at what the Giants got out of guys like Fabian Moreau last year. Fabian Moreau was our CB1 for like 7 weeks, guys, and he like wasn't terrible. He was a practice squad level talent plucked off the free agent market just as a hope and a prayer that he would stand up and be a CB2 for this team because of our lack of depth, and ultimately we just didn't have the talent. And of course, Adoree Jackson going down pushed him into a really prominent role. So, looking at Amani, this is a guy that had 6 interceptions in 2021. You know what I mean? He had an interception the year before that and 2 in his rookie season. He has 9 career interceptions. So, and in one season to have 6, he gave up 2 touchdowns that year, 582 yards, 6 interceptions, almost 1,000 snaps, right? Like, this is a player that has had success. He's a ball hawk. He's aggressive. And we know what Wink Martindale likes, right? He loves aggressive players, especially at the cornerback position. Now, if you're looking at last year, his tackling grades, he had a couple of pretty bad games to start the season, but the rest of the way was pretty efficient. He kind of dropped out of the starting lineup after week 8, I guess, against Green Bay. They kind of moved him to a different role, and he wasn't playing as many reps. But when you're looking at his role now, you kind of said it. If the Giants have any injuries, if the Giants have any actual issues here, and Adoree Jackson misses any time, or Deonte Banks, who knock on wood 1 billion times, I would trust that Amani could step in and at least provide a serviceable starter for the time being. Now, I do also have a lot of faith in guys like Cordell Flott to help out. Aaron Robinson, we'll talk about him in a second. And some of those other depth pieces, like Nick McLeod's kind of transitioning to a safety role, but I think he'll be more of a versatile utility piece, kind of like what Julian Love was. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nick McLeod got opportunities at cornerback as a worst case scenario. But again, you look at this team and you say to yourself, what's the most important position? Probably in a Wink Martindale defense, it's probably cornerback. So it's probably a good thing to invest in guys with upside like this, some good athleticism, has some really good experience under his belt, and could step in and play immediately for this team. So I think I'm on board with you in the sense that like it can't hurt to give this guy an opportunity, and he's had success in the past, and maybe he can refine his form, and maybe they get the best out of him because this coaching staff is so good. And not everyone takes to the Detroit Lions school of coaching. Obviously, they have a new coach there the past 2 seasons or so, and some guys have benefited. Their defense has been astronomically poor. Don't even know if that makes sense, but they've been really bad. So, maybe better coaching with a different scheme fits him better, and the Giants can get the most out of him, and that's kind of what we hope for because our coaching staff is that good.
That is what I'm hoping for, and I'm banking on 2 things. 1, a young player who still has something left in the tank, and a really good coaching staff that the New York Giants do currently possess. So, again, I think that there's an opportunity here for Oruwariye. If he sneaks away some playing time, he could turn things around and really reestablish himself as a serviceable starter in the NFL. A player who had a lot of promise beginning his career for his first 3 seasons in Detroit. I think that he's due for a bounce back with this change of scenery. But I also think that Aaron Robinson is due for a bounce back. We haven't seen him play in a long time. He's really struggled to get onto the field. Once he gets on the field, he's struggled to stay onto the field. But this is a guy with plenty of talent. UCF product, tall, physical, great in run defense, and somebody that the last regime loved so much that they traded up to draft him in the 3rd round. Had to jump ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles because Dave Gettleman was too afraid of him possibly landing in the city of brotherly love. So he made sure that he landed in the Big Apple. And Aaron Robinson, unfortunately, we haven't seen him do much for the New York Giants because of these injuries. But again, this is a guy who has that physicality. He does fit into the Wink Martindale defensive scheme despite being a slot cornerback. But I think that he really can take some reps away from these other guys who are competing for that job. As Alex mentioned, that's one of the positions that is up for grabs, slot cornerback. We have a few guys who could be taking that job. Aaron Robinson, Cordell Flott, Darnay Holmes, maybe even Bobby McCain sneaks his way into that role, or if Dane Belton doesn't get the strong safety job, he might try and sneak into the slot cornerback role. That's a wide open position. There's at least 4 to 5 guys who might be competing for that job. But Aaron Robinson is one player not to sleep on when talking about that slot cornerback job because, again, all of those physical traits that you love in a Wink Martindale defense, he possesses them. And not even on the outside like we would typically assume one of these taller, lankier corners to be. This is a slot cornerback, and he has the ability to play inside and make an impact in the running game, which is really important when you're in that nickel defense. You drop an extra linebacker off the field, and you throw an extra defensive back on the field. A lot of the times, that can hurt you, but not if you have a good tackling slot cornerback like Aaron Robinson, and that's where his value really lies. But Alex, I know that Aaron Robinson is a player you're pretty high on going into this training camp period of 2023. So why are you so excited by what the Giants might have in Robinson?
Look, like you said, there's a position battle going on at slot cornerback, and I don't want to rule out Robinson because you kind of said before the Eagles wanted him. Any player the Eagles want says to me that this guy's got some talent. This guy's got some quality. Now, we haven't seen a lot of Robinson. He's only played 340 total snaps, and that's not because he was benched. That's not because he was sat down for poor performance. It was because the simple reality, he got hurt, and the injuries were always freak. They weren't like these consistent injuries that were nagging him. It was like he got bent over backwards or some crazy thing happened. He looked pretty solid last year and only played 72 snaps, but he had a pretty good game against the Tennessee Titans in week 1. Gave out 28 yards, had a pass breakup. Like, he was solid, and he had 4 tackles to boot. So I'm not sitting here. I think a lot of people have written off Aaron Robinson. I'm not one of those people. He's 24 years old, former third-round pick. This guy's got value. This guy's got an opportunity to win that starting job back. I know a lot of people want Cordell Flott to win that job, and all the best to him. I hope he wins it too, because that would mean he beat out Aaron Robinson, which is a good thing. But let the best man win. I'm not ruling out A-Rob right now. I think that he could be a solid player for this team, and he also has the versatility to bounce outside if you need him to. Let him compete in the slot where he played at UCF, where he was really, really good. And if they need him to transition to the outside again, they can do that. And he's fine. He's a big body, 6'1", 193 pounds. He can stop the run. He can help you in that fast set. He can cover in man too. Like, that's a really good thing for him. And that's something that really stood out to me. He has a 3.1% missed tackle rate in his career. He doesn't miss tackles very often too. So you look at his numbers. I feel like the freak injuries have really set him back. But I really wouldn't be surprised if he kind of bubbled under the surface here and then stole that starting slot corner job away. And I'm excited to see it because right now we have some talent, but none of it's like proven. Cordell Flott's not proven. Bobby McCain's decent. He's okay. It was a really cheap filler for Julian Love's role essentially, and then Aaron Robinson essentially is like unknown at this point in time. So I can't sit here and tell you that we're going to have like a great slot cornerback position. Obviously, you have Darnay Holmes, we haven't even referenced, competing there as well. But, the Giants can stand to save $2.7 million if they let him go. So that's a potential opportunity for them to save some cash, or they keep him and, they let him play out the final year of his rookie deal, and hopefully he can leverage that into a bigger contract. But, again, not sleeping on Aaron Robinson. I know a lot of people are, but, the more talent we have, the better outcomes that can happen. I think that's kind of what I'm going to stand by.
Yeah, I'm not even going to cap him. I might be one of those players one of those fans that's sleeping on Aaron Robinson. I don't necessarily think that he's going to win that starting job, but I will say he does have the talent to at least see the field in some capacity if he stays healthy. I just have my reservations about his health. I don't know if I could trust him to stay on the field, but I hope that he does because, again, this is a player that I was really excited about when the Giants drafted him. I thought that there was a lot of talent there and a unique skill set for the slot cornerback spot. So I want to see him on the field and want to see what he has. We just haven't gotten the opportunity to get a large sample size of snaps from him to really get an extended look at him, but hopefully this season we do get that. I think that this is one of the players that I'll be keeping probably my closest eye on during preseason. When we get to preseason, of course, we're going to be excited to watch guys like Deonte Banks and everything, but these guys are going to be here for the next several seasons. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on a guy like Aaron Robinson, who right now it's prove it, put up or shut up. Like, you got to do something here and really prove that you belong on this team. And Robinson, if he puts together 2 solid games in the preseason, best believe he's going to find his way onto the roster and he will steal some playing time at that slot cornerback spot. So again, a player that I don't necessarily fully believe in just yet, but I'm intrigued by him and I want him to prove me wrong and I want him to steal some playing time. That would be a huge benefit for the New York Giants defense, but that it would be a benefit if any of these 3 players really stepped up, and of course if Tyrod Taylor also did step up and contributed some meaningful snaps if he needs to, which hopefully he won't, because he's not going to be stealing snaps from Daniel Jones. I believe in Danny Dimes, Mr. Country Singing with Zach Bryant on stage at concerts in the Queens. Daniel Jones Mahomes, that guy, he's living his best life, and I am so happy to see that, and I'm sure all of you are as well. But I hope you're all happy to be tuning into another episode of Fireside Giants as well. And if you are, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And make sure to go follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Fireside Giants. Daily New York Giants content coming your way from those social media channels. But without further ado, Alex, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.